A lion can run at 70 kilometers per hour. A crocodile can bite with a force of over 3,000 kilograms. A bear can smell prey from nearly 30 kilometers away. And yet none of them are the most dangerous species on this planet. You are. Not because you are stronger. Not because you are faster. And not simply because you are smarter. The real reason is something most people have never been told, and it goes back much further than you think. Researchers who study human predation found that humans kill adult prey at rates up to 14 times higher than other predators. Not the young. Not the weak. The adult breeding animals, the reproductive engine of every species on Earth. No lion does that. No wolf does that. Nothing in the history of life on this planet has done that at the scale that humans do. In this video, you are going to discover the 5 hidden forces that turned a fragile, naked primate into the most dangerous thing that has ever walked this earth. And the last one will change how you see yourself permanently. Let us go back to the beginning. 3 million years ago, a small primate was walking through open African grassland. No claws. No armor. No venom. No speed. Around it, lions, leopards, hyenas, and saber-toothed cats. By every measure of physical power, this animal should have been extinct within a generation. Something happened instead. And understanding what happened is the most important story in the history of life. The first force was one that no other animal could build. Not strength. Not size. Something far more dangerous than either. Every animal that has ever lived passed its survival information in exactly one way, through genes. If a wolf learns that a certain plant is poisonous, that knowledge dies with the wolf. Its pups must learn again, or not learn, and die. This is the ceiling every other species hits. They cannot accumulate knowledge faster than death erases it. Humans broke that ceiling. Not all at once. Not through one discovery. Through a process called cumulative culture, which researchers describe as the single most powerful driver of human dominance. Cumulative culture means that every generation starts where the last one stopped. A child born today inherits not just the genes of every ancestor who survived, but the knowledge, tools, norms, and techniques of every human who ever lived. And crucially, it can improve on all of it. Researchers call this the ratchet effect. Each innovation locks in like a ratchet tooth. It does not slip backward. It waits for the next generation to advance it further. By 5 million years ago, early hominins were already making stone tools. By 75 million years ago, those tools had become the Acheulean hand axe, a technology so precisely shaped it required planning steps whose payoff arrived much later in the process. That is not instinct. That is a mind that can hold a future state and work backward from it. And every improvement that followed, better handles, hafted blades, heat treatment, composite tools, stacked on top of the last. No other species has ever come close to building this kind of compounding technological inheritance. A chimpanzee can learn to crack a nut with a stone, but the next generation of chimpanzees must rediscover it. There is no upward ratchet, just an eternal beginning. Humans were building libraries of survival information before anyone invented writing. They were stored in brains, in practices, in shared rituals, in the specific way a flint was held. And that stored library grew every generation. But cumulative culture alone cannot explain everything, because information that stays inside one skull is still vulnerable to one death. The second force was the system that made knowledge escape the individual. And it was more than language. It was a specific kind of language that no other species has ever evolved. A lion can communicate danger with a roar. A vervet monkey has specific alarm calls for eagles versus leopards. But these calls are fixed. They cannot be combined. They cannot encode. Yesterday there were 3 leopards near the eastern waterhole, and one of them was injured in the left foreleg. Human language can. Researcher Mark Pagel described human language as oral DNA, a system that let culture adapt faster than genes ever could. Every new word is a new gene equivalent that spreads through a population at conversation speed rather than generational speed. Language let a hunter who failed explain exactly why he failed so the next hunter would not repeat the mistake. Language let a group plan an ambush that would not happen for 3 days, with roles assigned to individuals who would not even meet until the morning of the hunt. Language let the knowledge of one person become the property of everyone within earshot. And over generations, within earshot became within reach of trading networks that spanned hundreds of kilometers. Researchers found obsidian tools transferring across social networks covering roughly 200 kilometers in tropical Africa and up to 400 kilometers in subarctic regions. That is not one person's knowledge. That is a network's knowledge, carried in stone. The combination of cumulative culture and language created something even more powerful than either alone. Something that most videos on this topic never reach. It was the third force, and it is the one that makes humans genuinely unlike any predator that has ever existed. Not cooperation itself. Cooperation with strangers. Every social animal cooperates to some extent. Wolves hunt in packs. Chimpanzees form coalitions. Hyenas coordinate. But all of them cooperate primarily with kin. They are bound by blood. When a wolf helps a pack member, there is genetic incentive driving the action. Humans began cooperating with unrelated individuals across camps, across tribes, across distances that meant they would never see each other again. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer societies found that knowledge was distributed in a specific pattern. Medicinal knowledge clustered among spouses and kin. But foraging knowledge and social norms spread across unrelated campmates. This is extraordinary. It means a human group was not just sharing resources. It was dividing cognitive labor across a network of unrelated minds. One person specialized in tracking, another in plant knowledge, another in reading weather, another in the social dynamics of neighboring groups. The total intelligence of the group was far larger than the sum of its individual members. Researchers describe this as network memory. Your group was not just as smart as its smartest individual. It was as smart as its entire knowledge network. And that network could extend across entire regions. Boyd and Richardson, two of the most cited researchers in this field, argued that human cooperation at scale was driven by something unusual: intergroup competition. Groups that cooperated internally at higher levels outcompeted groups that did not. Over time, this created an arms race of cooperation. The groups that could integrate the most unrelated individuals, maintain the most stable norms, and coordinate the largest coalitions won. The ones that could not were absorbed or disappeared. The winner was not the strongest group. It was the one with the best rules for working together. And that outcome is not written in stone. It is written in the cooperation norms that human societies have been refining for hundreds of thousands of years. But here is the thing about information, language, and cooperation. They are all invisible. You cannot hold a cooperative norm in your hand. You cannot throw language at a mammoth. The fourth force is what turned all of that invisible power into something that could actually kill. Distance. Every predator that has ever existed has had to solve one problem. How do you kill something that is larger, stronger, faster, or more dangerous than you? The answer that evolution found for lions, wolves, bears, and every other large carnivore was the same. Get close. Use your body as the weapon. Accept the risk of injury. Humans found a different answer. Do not get close at all. By more than 279 years ago, researchers found direct evidence of stone-tipped projectile weapons in Ethiopia, javelin tips that showed fracture patterns consistent with high-velocity impact, not hand thrusting. 73% of the analyzed points had fracture velocities beyond the range of a thrusting spear. These were not just sharp rocks. They were projectiles designed to kill at a distance that made retaliation impossible. The anatomy to throw them with lethal accuracy appeared long before that. The human shoulder is a biological catapult. A tall, mobile waist, a laterally oriented shoulder joint, and reduced humeral torsion allow humans to store and release elastic energy in a throwing motion that no other primate can replicate. These anatomical features appeared together by Homo erectus around 2 million years ago. Long before the javelin tip, the human body was being optimized for throwing. And then came running. Humans are poor sprinters by any animal standard. A deer, a horse, a lion, even a zebra can outrun a human in a short burst. But there is a race that no other animal on Earth can win against a healthy human. A long race. In the heat. Researchers reconstructed persistence hunting, a technique documented in ethnographic records from multiple continents. A group of hunters would select a target animal, usually a large antelope or deer, and begin following it at a steady pace. They were not trying to outrun it. They were trying to outlast it. The target would sprint ahead, rest, sprint again. The hunters would track it, not by speed, but by reading the exact freshness of tracks, the angle of disturbed grass, the moisture in disturbed earth. They would find it resting and drive it to sprint again. In the heat of the African afternoon, the human body with its unique sweating system could keep running long after the target animal overheated and collapsed. Not a single other predator hunts this way. And it required not just anatomy but language, tracking knowledge, cooperation, and cumulative culture to work effectively. All four forces were operating simultaneously. But even all of this does not fully explain what happened to the rest of life on Earth when humans arrived. The fifth force is the one that elevated humans beyond predator, beyond apex predator, into something that no existing category in ecology had ever needed to describe. Fire. Not as a tool for cooking, not even as protection from other predators. Fire as a technology for rewriting ecosystems. Researcher John Gowlett described the emergence of fire control as a long and convoluted process, not a single moment of invention. Fire traces appear in the archaeological record from about 1.5 million years ago onward. Hearths become clear and consistent by the Middle Pleistocene. And when fire became reliable, it did not just warm a camp. It extended the human day. Modern humans stay awake 16 hours or more. Most large mammals are active for around 8. Fire gave humans an extra block of time every evening that no other species had, for planning, for teaching, for maintaining social bonds across a large group, for rehearsing the hunt that would happen at dawn. Fire reorganized sociality around hearths. It turned a vulnerable sleeping cluster into an illuminated, defended, socially active center. It improved diet by making food more digestible, freeing more energy for larger brains and longer ranging. And then humans began to use fire not just at the camp but across the entire landscape. They burned. They burned forest edges to create grassland that attracted prey animals. They burned undergrowth to promote the edible plants they wanted. They burned travel corridors through dense vegetation. In New Guinea, researchers found evidence of early colonists deliberately burning tropical rainforests to promote useful gap plants like yams. This is not hunting. This is redesigning the habitat itself. In New Zealand, South Island forests were rapidly transformed after human colonization around 800 years ago through fire. In the Americas, the arrival of humans was followed by the restructuring of entire faunal communities. The evidence is now overwhelming. A 2023 global study looked at 139 surviving megafauna species and found that more than 96% of their population collapse over the last million years happened in the last 50 years. Not in the last ice age. Not during a volcanic winter. In the last 50,000 years. Exactly when Homo sapiens spread across the globe. The study estimated the losses at roughly 660 million individual animals across the affected species. Those are not hunting casualties. That is the footprint of a species that had escaped the rules that govern every other predator. Because the most important thing about human predation is not what it looks like close up. It is what it looks like from above. A lion takes the weak and the young because that is what it can catch. This is how natural predation works. It removes the surplus and leaves the breeding population intact. Populations recover. Humans remove adults. The breeders. The most reproductively valuable individuals in the population. Daramont and colleagues compiled 205 exploitation rate estimates from species around the world and found that humans kill adult terrestrial mammals at median rates up to 14 times higher than other predators do. This is the central number. 14 times. That is not a more efficient version of natural predation. That is a qualitatively different process with a qualitatively different outcome. Natural predators trim populations. Human predation can collapse them. And when direct predation was combined with habitat destruction, species translocation, and introduced competitors and diseases, the collapse is accelerated. Pacific Island colonization by humans eliminated thousands of bird populations without factories, without fossil fuels, without guns. Just people. Fire. Transport. Introduced animals. The ecological reorganization was so thorough that researchers now say pristine landscapes simply do not exist in most of the world. Almost every environment on Earth has been shaped, burned, grazed, seeded, or restructured by humans at some point in the last 50,000 years. But here is the deepest part of this story. The part that no other animal has reached. Human danger does not require human presence.